We have as a guest today on the Healing Matrix Online, Dr. Jodie Dashore, and she is right now in, let me see, New Jersey, that is. I almost said Pennsylvania, I don't know why. And across the big pond here from UK, where we're broadcasting from, and very delighted to welcome you a second time here on this platform. We had conversations in the meantime. I'm very, inspired and really would love to have you share more about this actual situation that we're facing with all this so-called pandemic. And you and your family have had their own experiences. So let's dive into that. But before we go there, I'd like to just introduce you for those listeners who haven't heard of you before. So you have a lot of credentials, and you're internationally known for your pioneering work worldwide on plant-based medicine. You've got your own whole brand that you develop based on essential oils and herbs, and your great studies on Ayurvedic medicine. Then as a herbalist, you are credited as with the American Herbalist Guild as a practicing herbalist. And you are also on the scientific board of the advisory board for Bioregulatory Medicine Institute, Global Lyme Diagnostics Lab, and International Forum for Camel Advocacy, which I think last time we kind of touched on the camel medicine and all that for allergies and things. That's another one I'd like to catch up with you at a later point. Okay. You're also a member of the International Lyme and Associated Diseases Society since 2011. You're on the board certified in integrative pediatrics with over 20 years of clinical experience, which I imagine has something to do also with your son's history. Yes. As you started out there, and we'll hear about that more down the line. You're also board certified holistic health practitioner. And last but not least, you're holding a PhD as an integrative medicine practitioner and CIRS, CIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome, Shoemaker certified practitioner, and board certified doctor as an occupational therapy in neurology. So you have also this interest in the neurological side of things, which, how broad can you get to really cover all the aspects of the human organism? I love that, because you really have that holistic approach to all of that. And you're also trained in Europe, part of it in UK. You have backgrounds in homeopathy, in Ayurveda, in yoga, in India. And you're also founder of and director of the BioNexus Health Clinic, which you are working with for many years. And you are working with patients from over 50 countries. So that's remarkable. You're online, I suppose, and able to help people all around the world. So for all you listening, wherever you are, reach out to Jodie from wherever you go. And let's dive right into it, because in the first session that we had together, we covered sort of your history, but it would be nice for the listeners just to hear, in juxtaposition to what people think is a serious situation now with the pandemic, you kind of were on ground zero, so to speak, with your own family situation that inspired you to become what you are now and take up the challenge with your son, who had gone through, in a way, what I understand, much more serious illness and challenges, and you as a family, than many people have now, because we had a lockdown now for maybe 6 weeks, but you had to deal with this situation of your son for years. And I wondered if you could give us a little rundown, what brought you to being such a versatile, holistic practitioner, and what inspired you through your son's journey?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be back again, speaking with you today. My son Brian, he was, we found this out later, but I'll kind of weave it into my narrative so that people have a clear idea. There was a gestational transfer of Lyme disease and co-infections from myself to my son. When there is a gestational transfer, the child gets the symptoms in a slightly different way. There's GI issues, there's low muscle tone. There is no intellectual issues at all. However, once epigenetic insults are added, for example, I believe for us it was vaccines.
Okay.
And little bit of quite a bit of heavy metal issues from the supplemental formula. He was nursed for a good couple of years, but in the beginning, because of the emergency C-section, some supplemental formula had to be used just to make sure he was well fed. And there's so many additives in the formulas that are used at the hospitals.
Could I just ask, was that like milk formulas, or dried milk formulas, or what were they using, just to help people to prevent going through the same situation if they're here now from this? Would be very interesting to hear what was causing them.
You mean the baby formula? Is that what you're asking? Right. No, they were using conventional baby formula. Okay. So we know that conventional baby formula, other than glyphosate and other pesticides, there is a lot of other toxins in there. Okay. Right. So long story short, everything was proceeding well. A very athletic child, and at approximately 2 years of age, we ended up with a complete stop to progress. None of the developmental milestones, they just stopped. There was no regression. That's the key.
Interesting. At 2 years. Okay, just like out of the blue.
No, this was after DTaP vaccine.
Oh, okay. So there was a correlation there, you felt.
2 weeks, yes. Yes, yeah. So it wasn't 2 years, it was around 18, 19 months of age was when he got his DTaP. And 2 weeks later, we noticed, the fever, the malaise. And after that, we did not see any kind of progress, especially with language. At 2 years, that's what I was going to say when I said 2 years, but 2 years of age, he was able to read. Okay. Like anything and everything. He taught himself to read. He used to watch videos with subtitles, and he just decoded the language. Seriously, myself or any teacher has never taught him to read. He never wasted time. He could read anything, but he did not understand what he was reading. Right. Okay, so that the comprehension part, he had 2,000 words at 2 years of age, but he couldn't string more than a couple together. So he was, for all practical purposes, he was barely verbal. He didn't know how to use the words appropriately. He would script watching TV shows. So obviously, we knew that he was becoming further along on the spectrum, high functioning, but on the spectrum.
So it was mainly a neurological impairment, you feel, from what you observed then? It was mainly a neurological impairment that you saw then?
Correct. We saw mainly, yes, that's correct. And an immune.
Also, okay.
A neuroimmune impairment. And I think usually if there is a neuroimmune, the endocrine system doesn't, falls right in as well. So it was a neuroimmune endocrine issue because things got worse. You know why? Because I believe he was exposed to ticks again. Now, what happens is when you get Lyme disease through the mom gestationally, your immune system thinks that Lyme bacteria is a friend. And when you get re-exposed again, the immune system does not mount a response like it should as a foreign body. So, we were out on organic farms, running around. I had my own organic farm. We had about 85 acres, which we had a farmer, and then about 10 other partners in there. Yeah. So all of us, we had a couple times a week, we would go for harvesting, and the kids would play. And I'm sure, they got exposed to insect bites and what have you. But that's when we started noticing more immunological issues. We saw, growth issues, coughing issues, motor tics. These were all minor. Then one day he was 6.5 years old, came home from baseball practice, still barely verbal, and his left leg was dragging behind him. He couldn't walk. We we tried, maybe it was a cramp. We did like stupid stuff like massaging him and stretching him. And I mean, it was right after baseball practice, but yeah, all in all, I ended up with a 6.5-year-old, barely verbal, in a wheelchair. We had everybody. I mean, we saw 19 specialists, from orthopedic surgeons to, blood specialists and neurologists, and 10 false negatives for Lyme disease, until at the end, we, for the longest time, we were resisting seeing a pediatric oncologist. I mean, as first-time parents, your only child, you don't want to go down the cancer route.
Of course, yeah.
So we did every possible test, every scan. This poor kid has been poked and prodded. Finally, we gave up and we said, okay, let's go see the pediatric oncologist. And, that was the best thing we could have done, actually, because, as they say, that pediatric oncologists have seen many rare pediatric conditions. So she mentioned, God bless Dr. Murphy, she and I became good friends. We were texting back and forth, and she mentioned about a wonderful Lyme specialist. She said, yes, this could be, because, the problem was there was excruciating pain. The entire pelvis and the bone marrow in the pelvis was inflamed, full of pus and exudate and infection. So it looked like inflammation, but it was infection at that time, or it could have easily been misdiagnosed as cancer. So she pointed us in the right direction, that it was probably underlying multiple infections. So you go see Dr. Jones. So we did. So we made an appointment, but unfortunately, before we could do that, one morning Brian just wakes up, and his eyes are blinking, his face is grimacing, he is making involuntary vocal sounds like it's just completely involuntary. His head is shaking. His he was getting body shakes. He was getting dry heaves in his gut just overnight. It was all like, we were like, is he possessed? Like, what just happened to my kid? It was. He started talking about really morbid thoughts about, dead bodies rotting in the local graveyard by the church. This wasn't my happy child. So I once again called Dr. Murphy. I said, I have no idea what's going on. She said, look into pandas. So that was the very first time I heard about pandas. Now, this is going back more than 10 years. So 2009, right? So I said, well, what, the bear, what does this have to do with anything? She said, no, pandas. And she explained, pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorder associated with strep. That's the acronym, pandas. Yep. She said, start him on strep medication ASAP, which we did. Yep. Overnight, we saw some relief, and so that's how I got started with on my path as to,
So could I just ask that, intercepting, you had no previous medical experience, or were you already kind of inclined towards that area from any sort of passion you had for life, expressing your profession, or what were you involved with then?
Well, I am traditionally trained as a pediatric neurologist, Bombay Medical School.
Yeah. Oh, so you had some baseline there to start off from. Yeah, good. That's good to know. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I haven't practiced as an MD. I'm not licensed as an MD in the United States.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Long story. I wasn't really able to go into residency and fulfill all the requirements that's needed for various reasons. I just couldn't. Mostly financial, but I couldn't. When I migrated to the United States. So yes. So what I did instead was my pre-med was occupational therapy neurology. So I decided to go for my PhD. back in the day, doing a PhD in occupational therapy meant that you were mostly academic, and I wanted to practice. So I decided to do the OTD, which is the clinical doctorate for OT.
Yeah.
So specialize again in neurology track, stroke, traumatic brain injury. That's what. And then I went on to do postdoctoral in neurosensory integration.
Okay. Wow.
So yeah, because of that.
And yeah, and then all your trajectory from there into all these different fields you explored and dived into. Yeah. That's incredible. And do you feel so your original training and studies helped you to sort of kind of guide you with your son, or was it really, like you say, due to these amazing individuals that just brought almost like destiny calls of directions that then helped you to look for solutions?
The medical training stays with you always, you know, kind of like riding a bicycle. So
okay, I got you.
that doesn't, So that stays with you. And I come from a family of physicians. Mom was one, brother, cousin, uncle.
Immersed. All right.
Right.
Infused with all that knowledge and wisdom. Wonderful.
Yes, yes. My mom was also a medical intuitive. She was very holistic. So she was Greek. So coming from, I've been blessed to have the Indian side from my dad and the, wonderfully rich culture, holistic, family oriented, very naturally oriented. And the same applies to the Mediterranean cultures as well.
Of course. Yeah.
A lot of wholesome food, home cooked meals. So I've been blessed.
To move on a little bit in the journey here, so you found a solution to start with, but you told me before also that, in terms, just to put that again, juxtaposition where people are now, with the whole thing, I remember this image of you saying, well, your son had to wear a mask to go to school with the immune deficiency that he suffered. And this was going on for years or months, or how did you deal with this all? Because it seemed like it was an extended period.
Yes, one of the things that Lyme disease does, and I'll just backtrack just for a little bit. All right, so we were doing a lot of biomedical interventions for autism for my son, and myself being a sensory integration specialist, which is, I kind of stayed within the pediatric field, being trained as a peds neuro. So that was kind of my interest and forte as well. So that was very helpful to manage what was going on with my son. And, he developed a lot of medical conditions, and being able to obtain appointments with these specialists who look into rare conditions, that turned out to be an advantage with my qualifications and background. There were, I was very grateful for the professional courtesies that I was given. It's
wonderful.
It matters because, when you have a parent who's also been trained as a physician, you spend less time because there is that comprehension, the deeper comprehension of all of the medical issues, right? So we were looking at a combination of neurological issues, immunological issues, growth issues, infection issues. So this is, a lot, and plus orthopedic manifestations with all the aches and pains and joint pain, body pain, malaise, fatigue that goes with Lyme. Lyme disease will also cause immune suppression via various mechanisms. Then on the one hand, you had the immune suppression. On the other hand, we had the autoimmunity, which is pandas. In pandas, there are certain areas in the brain, for example, the basal ganglia, that resembles the proteins found in the strep bacteria.
Oh, I see.
So a suppressed immune system mistakenly goes and attacks those areas in the brain. So, so it's an autoimmune condition. So between these two, my son was so susceptible to infections, to strep. And as you know, most schools, especially elementary schools, grammar schools, are cesspools of disease. right?
Yeah, unfortunately, I've suffered all my childhood from it, unfortunately, because I was cesarean, and I hear much now about, you know, cesareans being more susceptible.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was my son as well. And, you know, yeah, it's quite unfortunate, but, you know, that's a whole other thing, right? The financial motivation behind C-sections, you know, goodness. But anyways, so what we had to do was, my son could not be in crowded places. The school nurse had to let me know as soon as anybody in his class reported a strep. At that time, we were just doing strep. So what we had to do was, during the morning rush hour, meaning, you know, when all the children got off the school bus, I couldn't use the school bus anymore because, again, you know, it was pretty much, I had to practice social isolation. Forget social distancing. We had to go through social isolation.
I hear you.
On my own. So I would drop him off in school with a mask on. He would have to keep the mask on till he got into his class. His class had air purifiers, you know, we had special sanitizing, which I would do once a week, which I was allowed to go in and do once a week. His teacher had him seated away. So that was social distancing was being practiced. So we had to do this all from second to fourth grade. So that was 2 years.
And you say you even were able to control the air conditions? Did you have like HEPA filters, or what did you implement?
Correct. I had a really good HEPA air purifier in the classrooms. Now it's easier in grammar schools because they only are in one classroom. You know, they have a homeroom and then they stay in the homeroom. So actually, you know what, not even till fourth grade, it was the social distancing is still practiced. He's 18 now, he's a senior in high school. So social distancing, we always had to practice. Having the school nurse know if there's any strep, let us know. Because, you know, once you have the common variable immune deficiency, even though it's acquired, not genetics, it's still an immune deficiency, which you have to watch out for. Once you have an autoimmune condition, you may be able to control that, right? But under stressful situations, it still manifests itself, you know, so we have to be careful. Another interesting thing that happened along the way was we discovered, well, first of all, with the strep, so the interesting thing that happened along the way was nobody really was aware of pandas back then, 10 years, very few. Okay, and so all of the play dates, we stopped getting invitations for play dates, for birthday parties. And then I asked the mothers, what just happened? They said, well, you know, your son, because he's in a wheelchair, I mean, excruciating pain, he's not participating in sports anymore. So you know, that connection is gone with our kids. There's no after school care because he couldn't, he was exhausted. There was no after school activities. And they were worried that, you know, if any family member had a little bit of cough and cold, they did not want to be responsible for informing me.
Of course,
Or, you know, should anything happen to Brian. So that was it. So I lost many so-called friends, you know, during this time. And I guess it's okay. You know, they were meant to go. It's fine. I'm okay with that. So this has continued from elementary school to middle school to high school. Now in high school, I mean, he's fine. He's been fine. As soon as he entered high school, you know, it was a whole new environment. But yeah, we did have air pure. Now in high school, thankfully, he has block scheduling, so he is only in 4 classrooms plus lunchroom. So we've been allowed to put air purifiers in there, and we are still notified if there is, you know, someone with any kind of contagious issue. So
interesting. You mentioned the air quality, because that's a great concern that I have, particularly for people in cities. Say, you know, and it's not so pertinent anymore, but maybe in some countries more prominent than others, the smoking, that people involuntarily smoke. I used to do a lot when I was a kid because everybody was smoking around. I was a non-smoker. So it's amazing to see that you still have to have that all in place with the special condition your son has. And I mean, I'm curious, with all that's going on now on top of it with the coronavirus, has he been affected at all? Or because I understand your husband has, and also recently you.
Yes. No, he has been okay because we also dealt with CIRS with him, the chronic inflammatory response syndrome, right, with Brian. And so he has been healed from within. So
he's now resistant, would you say?
He is.
He has the antibodies in place?
Yeah. Yes, his immune system is in good shape now.
Okay.
You know, we've had quite a few setbacks with growth.
Yeah.
We've had setbacks with some of his orthopedic issues with posture, etc. But he's walking, he's able to run, he can exercise. We still have limitations with range of motion, etc. But I do feel that his immune system is okay, partly because he's been repaired from within, you know, so he's been okay so far.
Would you give us a hint? I mean, when you say repaired from within, because I understand you've managed to do this without vaccinations, because I imagine after the first incidents of correlating his decline to vaccines, you wouldn't have vaccinated him anymore. So what were the means that you put in place to strengthen his immune system? Would you run us through that maybe?
Yes, of course, yes. We had to do conventional treatment for the life-threatening infections that we found. We found 11 infections. Many had gone to the brain. And we went in for approximately 6 months of intensive pharmaceutical therapy because we were trying to save a life. And along with that, it wasn't just exclusively pharmaceutical, because we were doing the basics of organ support, you know, liver, lymph, kidney support. We were doing probiotics. We were supporting the gut as well. Diet, right? Diet. We've been completely gluten-free, grain-free, sugar-free, organic, which means no artificial colors, minimally processed, everything home cooked. You know, I remember there was a point when I would make things like ketchup at home. Everything was homemade.
Wow, amazing. So really starting with the raw ingredients, the raw materials, fresh from the organic farm and garden, and starting from scratch, cooking and everything. Was he involved at all with that? Did he learn the works? Because he probably would gain now a lot of ground doing it himself, being away from home.
Yes, he is very observant. You know, once we treated for mold, mold causes, we haven't, we'll probably talk about it at some point, or maybe another one, another interview, but
very important subject,
mold causes brain damage, mold exposure in susceptible individuals. So we had brain damage in several areas in the brain, which was completely healed once we went through all of the steps of treatment. I mean, you know, we did before and after MRIs. It's not, it was pretty black and white to know that, you know, there was damage and now there isn't. You know, the herbs have worked, the medications have worked.
So you're actually saying is counter to what we were taught in school 40 years ago, that the brain can't regenerate. It has actually regenerated.
Oh, absolutely.
And not just the hippocampus area, is it other areas of the brain also?
Yes, the other areas have also regenerated. Yes, the caudate, the putamen, the amygdala, the forebrain parenchyma, the white matter lesions are gone.
Well, I need to talk more about that with you also in respect to what I've been going through and other people I know. Beautiful to know that you can give us this assurance that any part of the body can heal. It's amazing. And the immunity that you're saying in your son has recovered to a point where he's very functional.
Oh, absolutely functional. Yes. So we gained 11 IQ points, 11 to 12 IQ points when he was, you know, 11 to 12 years old. That's how I remember. And it was, I mean, he's had to make a lot of sacrifices, as you heard prior, but this has been our journey. And that's what enabled me to learn, along with so many fantastic mentors along the way. That were treating him, and I was mentoring with them while these great physicians and healers were helping me with my son. So his immunity has balanced itself out. They say there's no cure for autoimmunity, which is true, but it can certainly be, it can be managed really, really well. We don't see any signs of any autoimmunity. We just, the gut is repaired, the lungs are repaired and cleaned out, the body has been detoxified, the diet has been in place. I mean, he would have in his classroom, right, other children bring in lollipops and cakes for their birthdays. He would be like, no, thank you, I'm good. He wouldn't even ask for a substitute, does not have a sweet tooth.
Beautiful. Well, that's unique. And I understand also from our conversation that he's now turning it around as an opportunity for his own development, of professional development, serving other people, and taking up also the route of becoming a doctor.
Yes, he's going to be attending medical school this fall, hopefully.
Beautiful. Congratulations having managed to get him through all that journey, and now he's turning it into an opportunity. It's so beautiful to see. And if you don't mind, would you tell us a little bit more also about your own journey and your husband's through this Corona crisis, and how you were affected and how severe it was? Because a lot of people, I think, out there still to this day, even there's now talk of possibly opening up the work again and the economy wanting to go back to activity and so on. How is it for you, and how was it for you and your husband to go through this? And what were the mainstay kind of remedies and support that you felt you and your husband needed to actually go through this experience?
Okay. Well, Alex is a 9/11 survivor, but it was hours before he was rescued. 42nd floor of Tower 2 was where he used to work at, and so I believe we didn't have cell phones back in the day. I was 7 months pregnant when 9/11 happened. I was pregnant with Brian, and so it was hours before they were actually rescued. And the first responders, as well as the people who were rescued, inhaled a lot of toxins, noxious fumes and gases, and a lot of toxins. So I've always had that in the back of my head. He was young. We were in our early 30s when that happened, and so he, and an athlete, so he did well overall. Now he works in New York City, takes public transport every day. And March 7th was the last time he was in the city on public transport. So in my mind, I remember speaking with my husband and my son that, guys, looking at how things are going, it's not a matter of if we get it, it's a matter of when we get it. So we have to be prepared. It's you need to be pragmatic. Now people say, oh, it was so easy for you to just accept you'll get it, because we've been through. I've been incapacitated with Lyme and mold myself. I've seen my child.
Okay.
We've almost lost him a couple times. He was so severe with his manifestation of his various conditions.
Right.
So it is what it is. I've lost 3 brothers. I've lost both my parents. I've lost various relatives. So I've seen death from up close. And I mean, the one reality of life, the only certainty in life is we are all going to die one day.
Totally so. And it's a rebirth, really, as much as I know and I've experienced with people, and having accompanied my own father. I mean, the people I know who have accompanied people across the threshold, they really start appreciating life and everything that there is, and there's no bad times anymore.
Yes.
It's all an opportunity and a blessing to experience life to the full, isn't it?
Yes. Every moment is a gift. If you keep your focus in the moment, you will enjoy it. I'm not saying that, live each moment like you don't have the next moment. No, that's not always practical. That's ideal. but that's not always practical because life happens. So March 10th was when Alex started becoming symptomatic. We did not have proper testing facilities in New Jersey, and we had a couple which required high fever as one of the criteria for testing, which Alex did not have. So I'll list his symptoms. So we had low-grade fever, malaise, a lot of aches, pains, coughing, sore throat. He did not lose his taste of smell or a sense of taste and smell. That wasn't lost as far as I know. The dry cough was quite debilitating. Now, we had that one study come out of France speaking about Zithromax and Plaquenil. So we had access to that study, but prior to this, the entire week, like March 2nd, was when I had started the BioNexus COVID protocol, because I believe March 1st or 2nd, the first case it came to light that, oh, this person has COVID in New York.
Okay.
And, yeah. Since then, it just expanded exponentially. But so we had this protocol. I had to come up with something for my patient population because, as you can understand, almost my entire patient population is immune compromised with mold and Lyme and autism and all of these issues together sometimes in one person, right? So I'll go over that protocol with you. So we were doing herbs.
Yeah, so just to reiterate, what you're really saying then is those people in the population who had already prior compromised immune system were more likely to actually be exposed to this virus and also contract it.
Yes, not more likely to be exposed, but more likely to respond with catastrophic issues if not properly protected.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so wonderful you had the opportunity to prepare actually and be ahead of the game.
We did, thank you. Yes, we did. Because, I have learned what I have learned with Lyme, pandas, PANS, co-infections, what I do now, herbals, because I was trying to heal my son. We couldn't really use conventional methods anymore because his gut was a big issue. So that, pushed me into researching herbalists, mentoring with herbalists, becoming a clinical herbalist, becoming accredited and certified. So all of those, right? So I consider all of my patients as my extended family. I don't have any family in the United States, no extended families, just, just the three of us here. So I was just taking care of my extended family. And so Alex started with these symptoms and he was doing the herbs. So what we did was we doubled the dosage and we quadrupled or even quintupled the frequency. We started doing vitamin C, 1,000 milligrams hourly.
Hourly, oh wow.
Hourly, after a little bit of snack, vitamin C hourly. Then we started doing zinc, 20 milligrams 3 times a day. Okay, now this was 2 days into everything. Now, this was when I got a hold of the study from France. So I decided one other symptom was he started feeling a lot of dental pain.
Oh, right.
So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
So I had that recently. I was wondering what was going on. I thought I had something pushed up in between teeth and gum. And I'm wondering if I had because I noticed myself, I had some conditions, but I took so much vitamin C and most of what you're saying that after a few days, it just, I think 2 days, it went away.
Okay.
Interesting, because all my jaws were aching. Now you're saying that, it's, okay.
Yes. Yeah, so I started him on Zithromax.
Okay.
Okay. Because I knew obviously hospitals are not prepared, testing cannot be done for him, but it was very obvious. I mean, look at his history, look at him working in New York City, and city shut down. So anyways, so what we did was I started Zithromax for like a week. We saw alleviation of his dental issues, but the cough went into pneumonia.
Okay.
Okay, so
Oh,
obviously someone with compromised lungs, it went into pneummonia, and he was,
yeah.
yeah, he
Makes
was
sense.
coughing up a lung. It was really, it was frightening my son. And, you know, we had the moments that we had when he was able to sit up, we actually had end of life discussions.
Really?
It was, yes, we didn't know where this would go, you know. Anyways, so I told him to transfer all of this online banking and what happens. I'm not really good with technology. To have that transfer to Brian, you know, explain to him how he pays the bills. So, and I mean, the whole thing online, I just said, Alex, you know, just try and sit up for a little bit and see if you can pass this information on to Brian. And so at this time, I decided, and again, I was also doing vitamin A, I was doing vitamin D, I was doing the herbs. I'll share my screen and show you the protocol at the end.
Nice.
But,
yeah.
Right. So I knew I had hope in my heart. I decided to change the antibiotic because Plaquenil was not being dispensed in New Jersey. All of the pharmacists were instructed by the government to, you know, hold it for the seriously hospitalized patients on ventilators.
Right.
So that wasn't our case. So I did not have Plaquenil for Alex. I switched his antibiotic to clarithromycin. So azithromycin and clarithromycin belong to the same family of antibiotics. But to me, I've seen that clarithromycin is much better suited for pneumonias because it is quite anti-inflammatory. So so we added that, and thankfully within 2 days, we felt a tremendous improvement in the wetness of his cough. That had reduced, and it brought the stress level in the house way down.
Yeah.
We were, especially for my son, but and obviously we were using all kinds of precautions, you know, isolation precautions and what have you. But I mean, at that point, we had already been exposed, myself and my son, because, you know, the symptoms came on pretty suddenly.
Sure.
So you wouldn't think, you know, oh, this, you know, 6-foot athletic muscled guy would just boom, next day morning, he is under. It just comes very fast. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, even the pneumonia just comes on like boom. You know, one day he has a dry cough, next day, you know, his lung is coming out.
Wow.
It was just, so it took 3 weeks for him to get back on his feet, you know, to get an appetite again. But he recovered. Yeah. And few days after he recovered, I think somebody is watching out for us. There was few days after he was able to hold his own. That middle of the night, 2 a.m., I ended up with high fever, chills, anxiety. I mean, I don't get anxiety. I'm a laid back person. So it was very high anxiety, excruciating headache, really bad aches and pains. It was literally like someone was stabbing my muscles all over. It was very difficult. I tried to meditate, go to sleep. It just did not work. I woke up in the morning very nauseous. So nausea was almost like having morning sickness again for a few hours. Couldn't eat. This lasted. Extreme fatigue. Could barely lift up a finger. This is where, you know, all of the training. You asked if Brian knew how to cook and manage for himself. He does. Yeah. Yeah.
Because, initiation.
Yes, from a very young age, because I instructed him, you know, I said, it is best because this is going to be your new normal. Yeah. You need to. So he also managed to look after my husband as well, you know, make sure we get, and myself, you know, I got some nice good soups that he made. And so it took me 3 days. I did not use any pharmaceuticals.
I just the herbs, you use the soups, broths, and so on.
Yes. I used soups and broths was the only thing I could keep down. A lot of ginger. Yeah. You know, so I made So I'll tell you my protocol. So yes,
Okay.
I'm going to show you my COVID protocol, which I use for all my patients.
Very
But
curious.
other than that,
Yeah.
I will. So other than that, we did, those were the herbs we did. And then I also did, I have been doing for a month and a half now, a week before lockdown is when we started.
Yeah.
So I do fresh organic ginger, cloves, cardamom, and turmeric and black pepper. So black pepper is optional. Because, you know, curcumin or turmeric, when it's warm, it's fine, it's activated. But when it gets lukewarm or cold, you know, you can just like squirt some black pepper into it for added absorption. So I would make this, you know, tea every single day and have 2 cups a day. It's very settling for the gut as well as very, you know, modulating for the immune system. Now, here's an important thing, right? Patients with underlying autoimmune conditions, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, Lyme disease, mold exposure, we cannot boost our immune system because immune boosting will further exacerbate the autoimmune condition.
Right.
So what we need is immune modulation or regulation.
Regulation.
Those are the kind of herbs. I mean, things like vitamin C, they don't boost your immune system. They modulate your immune system. They boost your wellness overall, you know. So those are fine. But I've seen people, you know, going to town with things like echinacea, astragalus, golden seal, elderberries. Those are boosters. And unless you have a serious case of cold or flu, don't do those.
Okay.
If you have underlying conditions, you know, if you...
Great advice, because I was totally unaware of those 2 levels of different approach, that different plants had that different effect. And I totally, I'm with you with the whole aspect of, it's almost as if when you give certain herbs, the body knows what to take that it needs.
Correct.
And finds its balance, its homeostasis.
Yes.
Whereas with the other ones, you go over the top, you're saying.
That is correct, yes, because when you have your innate and your adaptive or acquired immune system off track, one is upregulated and dysregulated, other one is suppressed. If you start boosting the immune system, it ends up with a pretty toxic reaction. The immune system may very well go autoimmune. Then you know, there is levels to this. Like many of us, you know, who've done our Lyme disease Western blot, you have a band 39 in there. You know that band 39 is associated with Lyme-induced autoimmunity. Then there are kids who have autism, who already have so many immune issues, you know, that is well published and well documented. So you just have to be careful.
So is that what some doctors were speaking with the coronavirus? The cytokine storm takes kind of over?
Yes, cytokine storm, again, it can be auto-inflammatory at one point. If you have underlying conditions, then the cytokine storm becomes auto-inflammatory, exactly like in SIRS. In chronic inflammatory response syndrome, with corona, it becomes not chronic, but acute inflammatory response syndrome.
Okay, so it goes just over the top.
Correct. And the word response, like what is responding? What is chronic inflammatory or acute inflammatory response syndrome? It's the immune response.
Yes.
So for CIRS, if you substitute inflammatory with immune, it's still the same thing. Chronic immune response syndrome.
Okay.
That means it's producing inflammation.
And it looks like these sort of more traditional herbs that are also used very commonly in cooking seem to be much more regulating than modern stuff that now is like, you know, everywhere out there, and you got to have that because you got to just put it in there because you need that immediate sort of kick to get out of the flu or just even common cold. So that's kind of oversold, would you say? Like echinacea and, you know, elderberry extract and all that?
Yes, it is oversold because people are, you know, and it's a good thing in a way because people are looking at plant-based options.
Yeah.
However, being a self-advocate and being a well-educated patient, even if you're just a patient of the flu,
Yeah.
it's good to be educated because there are so many epigenetic toxins and poisons in the world we live in. So
Yeah, we don't realize plants can have all the toxins as much as environmental artificial toxins.
yes, like what is
Phytotoxins.
one, yes, and also what is one man's medicine can be another man's poison, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that's where you're coming into full action, I can see.
Yes, I should
Immediate.
show you. Yeah, I'll share my screen, but you know, it's not on the PowerPoint, it's a mini PowerPoint, but because of a lot of requests from my clients and patients and colleagues, I am going to come up, I have formulated or created 2 formulas. One is for immune modulation, the other one is for immune boosting.
Amazing.
So yeah, so it's going to be part of the BioNexus herbal family.
Yeah.
And it's going to have obviously Ayurvedic and Western herbals that are known to modulate and regulate the immune system. And the other one will be the herbs that can boost your immune system. Now, those who have gone through the entire BioNexus protocol, you know, you've been through repair, regeneration, you're on maintenance, you can do immune boosting. It's fine.
Okay.
It won't harm you or you know, send you into autoimmunity. So
so it's really a matter of observing the process and when to bring it in.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. Once all of the inflammation and infection has been mitigated, once all of the toxins, you know, what I do, and I should have my book is going to be released as an ebook because many people don't want to wait for you know, for things to normalize, but we don't know it, right? You know, they're saying there could be extended lockdown, they're saying there could be a second surge. So I'm being requested to release an ebook because that's the only protocol out there for chronic inflammation, a complete plant-based protocol for chronic inflammation. So I'm trying my best to do that. So here is.
That's great to have that in place now. Are you aware when it will be coming out?
Yes, my editor is stuck in Montenegro. So it will be, let me open this here. Right. So I'm hoping within a few weeks now, as soon as I can figure out this whole online way of doing things.
Of
with
course,
the book.
A whole new world that's opening up.
Yes.
But I can't wait to see it out, and I'm hoping you will advise us so we can put it also into the show notes and everything.
Okay.
So people have access to it. Lovely.
Okay, so this is, well, information about the book, including the cover, etc., is on my website, right? BioNexus.com. There is some information there. We don't have it for a pre-order for the public. We do have it for a pre-order for practitioners.
I see. Okay.
So here we go. This is a little bit about BioNexus herbals. Now, in my office, you know, it's a full-fledged apothecary, very close to my organic farm.
Yeah.
It's you know, it's beyond organic. The farm is actually biodynamic, so it's.
Yay! Hooray! Yes, we're on the bandwagon. Biodynamics.
Exactly.
Rocks.
Yeah. Beyond organic, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So all of the herbals that I have for my patient population, we are able to offer full apothecary services for those herbals, and we can customize to each patient's individual need. It could be frequency medicine. It could be, you know, using your own bioprint to imprint these medications to further enhance the immune response.
Okay.
Obviously, they are all lab tested. They're exclusive formulas. biodynamic or organic or consciously wildcrafted. And as you and I both know, wildcrafted herbs are the most powerful.
Certainly are.
Yeah, they are. Okay, I mean, obviously, if, not if they are wildcrafted from a completely toxic area, but if they are wildcrafted in the wild.
Yes, yeah. Protected areas far away from any contamination, yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. We have many practitioners and physicians on board, and of course, they are made in the USA. These are all proprietary herbals.
Right.
They are, I mean, yes, they've been involved in clinical protocols, lab research, double-time lab tested, FDA registered facility, CGMP practices, and what have you. This was a multi-center clinical study going on with one of my formulas for mold, the nasal spray. And there was also, so that's in vivo. In vitro, we had stupendous results with 97.4 to 99.2% inhibition or eradication reported by Dr. Musto and Dr. Shoemaker's team.
That's brilliant. Wow, that's super high.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This briefly is the mold pack.
Okay.
So I will not go over this a whole lot. If anyone has questions, let me know, and I will. But this is the important one here, based on what we are speaking of today. So this one here, it says 2020 immune support. We had to remove the word COVID, like 2020 COVID immune support, because, in order to be politically correct, you need to remove the word COVID. So it consists of the nasal spray, which protects the upper respiratory. And then we have the pneumonia. The MPS blend is the pneumonia immune support. As the name suggests, it's immune support, which helps protect against pneumonias. Lung support. Oh my gosh, Hans, if you look at the beautiful herbs in there, it is, these blends are just so beautiful, especially the lung support. I use the lung support. It has herbs like Solomon seal and pleurisy root, so very nourishing and beautiful for the lungs. I use this blend during the repair and regeneration phase from the lung damage from the mold and babesia. So that's what the LS blend is. And virus immune support, again, as the name suggests, is immune support for any kind of a viral issue. Then optional, which comes highly recommended, is the essential oil support. So this is personal protection. It just means that I have a PDF that I can forward you with my, and I'll go over that now, which gives you recipes on how to create a personal protection spray. So before we go out, or when we were sick at home, like, I was ill, Alex was ill, so how to protect other family members is, you can make a spray to spray around yourself. Obviously, close your eyes and spray, and a couple other recipes. Then,
that's
since
fantastic.
Sorry?
Fantastic to be aware of others, not to spread your own bugs. I mean, that's so considerate. That's amazing.
And then, of course, we have the BioNexus organic hand sanitizer, which many of my patients were not able to stock up on, so we just came up with one.
All right.
Okay, so this is the BioNexus family of herbals, and you see these are a lot of them, and many of my patients that have been with me over 6 months are doing a lot of herbals in all these different countries. I currently have 27 or more patients that are that have been exposed to COVID and symptomatic. Not a single one went into critical care.
Okay, fantastic! Congratulations.
Thank you. These are more for practitioner. Hans, if you ever want this, let me know, because this is, instructions, and it's mostly for practitioners.
I'd be very curious to see that in more detail.
And here's the book.
This will be the BioNexus approach to biotoxin illness, a step-by-step plant-based approach.
Fantastic.
And that's that. That's my website. And this is the instructions. Okay, I don't seem to have the instructions here.
Okay.
But it's a PDF document.
Yeah.
All right, so maybe
Well,
I
if it's
can
too difficult to
email
find
that.
right now, if you send them forward and then
I will.
make use of them to add them to the notes or for people to have access. Do you have access to material on your website also?
Yes, I do. Yes,
Yeah.
I can. Yeah, there is.
So we'll just put the website
if you're
on the
in
show
the
notes.
store,
Yeah.
yeah, if
Nice.
you're in the store, it goes into.
What I love so much is we have you here today. You know, we had to postpone for a few days, and you're in full functioning, you know, shining bright, well communicating to us. You're all functional again, more than functional, sharing your amazing wisdom. So grateful you came through this, and you know, sharing with us the options. We have options here, and what I loved about what you said before, also in our conversation, is you considering what some people call mainstream medicine as the complementary medicine now, because really we are natural beings. So why not harmonize with nature outside and bring it in? And you have found these amazing herbal remedies blended with essential oils. I love it. It's just right up my street, and you know, just can't wait to try some of it. Particularly, I'm thinking of the mold one because I was obviously exposed also to mold.
Oh,
I
right.
have still some issues with the lungs. I don't know. Sometimes there are respiratory issues, I think, of not getting enough air. But I'm trying as much as possible with the cheapest way, which is just breathing, breathing exercises, and a lot of saunas and what have you. But adding the herbs, I can just highly recommend it because I've had a lot of own experiences with it, and I'm sure with your expertise you've created the best there is out there.
Thank you. We are looking to see if we can collaborate with one of the big supplement people in the UK and and have it available for the people. You know, trying to acquire a local distributor. I'm not. Many practitioners in the UK are trying to do that, so they want to bring those. You want to have a look at the protocol real quick?
Yeah, please.
Let me see.
Let's have that and round off with that. Yeah, that's fantastic.
So it's. I'll forward this to you if you want to make it available. But yeah, as you can see,
yes, please.
you know. Yeah.
So here you got all the supplements. Yeah.
Correct.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Clean air, clean water, clean diet, vitamins C, A, D. You know, specifics in there: melatonin, organ support.
Also
hydration.
melatonin, fantastic. Yeah.
Correct. Diet, Wi-Fi.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Eliminate those Wi-Fi signals because they're feeding in, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah. Fantastic. And again, just to reiterate, when you're talking about vitamin supplements, you're talking about quite high dosage.
Yes.
You just maybe reconfirm to all the listeners that how to handle that, because a lot of people have that prejudice that high dosage has a lot of side effects. But what would you say to that statement?
Okay. With vitamin C, you can go all the way up to 7,000-8,000.
Okay.
7,000 to 8,000 milligrams or 7 to 8 grams. The up to bowel tolerance is what I say, because the worst thing that can happen is diarrhea.
Absolutely.
So that's all. And vitamin A also, honestly, if there is an underlying issue, you have to understand that there is a difference between doing high doses prophylactically, and the highest doses are to be done when you are symptomatic, because what happens is, like I was doing hourly vitamin C during the waking hours, right? So I wasn't doing 24,000 milligrams. I was doing about 10 to 12,000 milligrams a day, and I did not have any bowel issues. And this was because I was infected.
Of
So
course.
that was being utilized.
Yeah, it would be absorbed rather than being washed out. Yeah,
Correct.
I can reconfirm that. I went up to 20,000 for a short period of time myself with the mold contamination and other issues that I had with glyphosate and everything. Would you say other hacks like apple cider vinegar and such things also might help? Honey, propolis?
Correct. Okay, so when you do honey, propolis is supposed to be antiviral from what I've heard. My experience with propolis hasn't been great.
Yeah.
You know, I've tried for my son, I've tried the propolis nasal spray, I've tried the propolis diffuser. I ended up buying 7 or 8, one for each room of my house. You know, when Brian was recovering when he was little, it seems to be big in Germany. So when we came back from cryotherapy for Brian's tonsils, we got a lot. It didn't really do much for us, but you know, for others, it seems to be helping. So all in all, like, what was your question? I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just sort of going down the road a little bit. You know, what are the natural means that traditionally people knew, actually, you know, like the apple cider vinegar, honey, propolis, what have you, that we have anyway, you know, and we used to have.
Yes, we do.
But then it's very interesting to hear you say that, you know, we're so individual that we have different responses. I mean, some people swear in colloidal silver and what have you, but really, it's at the end of the day, as you say, we have to very much work with people as individuals.
Correct. So all of these, prophylactically speaking, should be okay. You know, don't start doing mega doses for prophylaxis, and mega doses work fine. Now, apple cider vinegar, honey, these are, you know, Ayurvedically speaking, honey in hot water. So what I do is the tea I mentioned before with ginger and other herbs, honey in hot tea, that tea works really well first thing in the morning. Apple cider vinegar works well for gut issues. I have a wonderful formula called as gut butter, not formula, recipe. It's called as gut butter. That is used for almost every patient of mine, depending on individual needs. It'll be used at various stages of their treatment. And it really helps with building up and fortifying the immune system in the gut. Most of it is in the gut. So yes, and anything you can do to detoxify and fortify your gut, that is going to be helpful in any kind of a pandemic situation.
So would you say fermented foods?
Fermented
drinks?
Fermented foods,
like sauerkraut?
not if you are dealing with active mold issues.
Okay.
No fermented foods until the mold toxins have been pulled out of you.
Thinking more about thinking more about the coronavirus right now, people don't have mold issues or candida or any of such conditions. So they could actually go to fermented food, fermented drinks like kefir, kombucha, things like that.
Yes. So if you don't have any underlying issues and you know, we're just talking about corona right now, then yes, of course, fermented foods and any kind of foods that offer immune support. Yes. Yeah.
Mushrooms, chaga, reishi, ganoderma, and so on. So we have a lot of natural means also to just bring it all together at this time. And as you said, with the vitamins, particularly be considerate of the effects it could have if you carry on high dosage. It's symptomatic high dosage, but then go down to maintenance dosages. So we would use the general recommended RDA, recommended daily allowance. Or even higher.
No. Vitamin D can be up to 2,000 to 4,000 milligrams, 2,000 to 4,000 units a day is fine. Okay. Vitamin A, 1,500 to 2,000 a day is also fine.
Yeah.
B complex would be good. You know, anyway, you want to get your B complex either from fruits and berries and smoothies. That's what we do. You know.
Delicious. Sounds fantastic.
Yes, but
nice. And
anyway, you can do that because you know the food situation isn't that great. It's getting better. Yeah. The food situation, right? The groceries and fresh produce.
Yeah.
But so there are a few other things, right? Your diet would be great with fresh herbs, ginger, garlic, basil, all rosemary is wonderful.
Yeah.
Oregano, of course, is really wonderful. Fresh olive oil, raw, unfiltered olive oil. These are good fish if you eat with the omegas. So there are a lot of things that you can do to keep your immune system going naturally. Stay away from junk food and processed foods, as much organic as possible, as much raw as possible if you can. Things like papaya, pineapple, they have wonderful natural enzymes in them.
Yeah, they're wonderful. Yeah, I've used a lot of those, both in Mexico and here also now. I love it that, we can talk about things now that if people really embrace this as an opportunity, rather than being in that place of fear and wondering if they would get the virus or whatever, and put these beautiful new habits into place now, we're coming out of this crisis actually healthier.
Yes.
So I think really with that impetus, I want to close our wonderful conversation, your contributions that are so wide, embracing so wide a field and options to improve our health and our mainstay vitality, because I think that's what it really boils down to. And then the joy of living becomes a different kind of ball game. And I really highly appreciate your presence in our space here, in our lives, for all you out there listeners to be listening to us. And I'm looking forward to take you back to visit with Jodie and talk more about her amazing protocols, because there's so many more things like the camel milk, and we haven't talked about other illnesses that she's dealing with, because now we're so focused on Corona and all that. So really a lot to explore with you, and looking forward to take you listeners to visit in again and to meet with you again. Jodie, thank you so much. Any last word of advice or that you would like to contribute before we close?
Just that I agree with you when you say don't stay in a space full of fear. Right? Fear and love just cannot survive in the same space. So enjoy the love of your family, of your loved ones. Enjoy the time with your family. I understand there's going to be an underlay of stress and fear, but it should be left at the door. But sanitize that at the door before you enter.
Love that image. Leave it outside, yeah, and bring only the love inside. And beautiful nature that you gathered when you're on your walks and your exercises and all that. Fantastic. Blessings to all of you. Thank you again. Really feel blessed by your presence, Jodie. And we'll talk soon again. Yeah. Namaste.